So I want to talk about some people who are finally coming back to work, but I actually saw something. I wasn't planning to share this with you guys, but I saw something that was funny and troubling and made me feel a whole bunch of different emotions, kind of like I've been feeling since before the election. But, in 2020 has been such an unpredictable year for mass amounts of Americans, right? Many people have lost their jobs, they've lost their health insurance, they've been evicted, and I bet a lot of people really didn't take the time to consider the fact that our COVID in chief right now, a man who, quite frankly, has not been able to relate to Americans. He's this very wealthy, very powerful man who has the biggest, bestest brain we've ever seen and heard of before, right? He does so well at his memory tests and he has the best body and best health ever. Let his doctors, he's just this man above the rest of us, right? And a lot of you, I bet, didn't stop to think about the fact that this man in this year in 2020 has probably been more like other Americans than probably ever in his life before, right? In 2020, I just named how, so many people, so many Americans, so many of us average measly peasants have dealt with, these difficult things. But, I think 2020 has humanized COVID in chief, Donald Trump, because he has had a year that is literally on par with other Americans. He got COVID-19. He lost his job. He's about to get evicted. As a result of losing his job, he's going to use that excellent health insurance that he had, and so I just really want you guys to take a moment to kind of realize that the president, he's really a man of the people, right? He's he's right here with us, as not humorous as this is. I mean, he's a man who really is, he's the most awesomest, greatest American who has the bestest, biggest brain. But anywho, so now that that is out the way, when I saw that, I don't know who sent that to me, and I saw it, and I just chuckled. I was like, wow. But no, I actually do want to talk about some people who are actually coming back to work again. I know that a lot of you have lost your jobs in 2020 through no fault of your own. But again, we do have some people, a group of Americans who did not lose their jobs, and they are actually on track to come back to work on Monday. These are actually our employees, people that we employ, right? I bet you didn't know that you have employees that should be working hard for you each and every day that they show up to their measly, maggly, scriggly jobs, right? But so essentially, guys, these people are supposed to be coming to work on Monday, Congress, but quite frankly, we all know that given the time that given what we dubbed the time between an election and the next administration, which will not be a smooth transition to Trump's second term. I literally, guys, when I saw that comment, but anyway. So these people, they're coming back to work, but we all know that they are now officially in this lame duck session. And so we know that the lame duck is lame and doesn't do anything. But despite the fact that we know that, again, it is official that the Senate, they've actually been back in Washington. But the House of Representatives, they are actually going to join the Senate there, in Washington, D.C. on Monday to kind of, quote unquote, work out the remaining portion of their elected term post-election. Now, if you don't know, if you haven't been keeping up, because I know a lot of people have been so enamored with the election that they really haven't paid attention to what has been going on with stimulus talks. And if you look at the past few episodes I've done, I really haven't been focused on stimulus talks. And even though we do focus on stimulus, we really have been talking a lot about essentially the election, right, and its impact on stimulus, not exactly stimulus itself. But so just to kind of sum up kind of where we are. It shouldn't be a surprise because it's where we were before. You still have Republicans who are demanding, and I'm not going to here's what I'm going to say. I've mentioned several times before that when it comes to politicians, both sides, any side, all sides, you need to understand the psychology, right, behind what they are doing. They don't just let you see certain things, like when we think that things are leaked, especially when they leak them from their own camps. Politics is all about perception, and perception is not just what you see, it's also what you hear. So you need to be very mindful, not even just with politicians, but when you hear news being reported to you, be mindful of the words that people are choosing to use, because even if they claim that they are attempting to, like on news shows or especially YouTubers, they like to use the word unbiased. I'm not a biased source of media. But then when you look at how they're phrasing things, the words they decide to use, because the words you use, no one is forcing you to use certain words. You make a choice. And a lot of these people are educated people and they have an expanded vocabulary, right? And so when they decide to use words, for instance, like targeted, they know that what they're asking for is a smaller package, but they know that if they say targeted, it plays better, and in most cases it will go over the heads of people who are actually receiving the language. So they're not going to be the people receiving the language and hearing the language are not going to think, well, this person actually wants to do less for me. They're going to be thinking, oh, well, they want to do something very specific for me. You see what I'm saying? Like, you see what I'm getting at? So just kind of keep that in mind. So that said, I'm not going to use the word targeted that Republicans have decided to use for optical reasons, for psychological reasons. I'm going to use the word that is essentially, like in the words of the president, it is what it is. They want to do something smaller, right? If you're actually comparing the size of, if we want to describe the size of what they are actually looking to do, the size of the package, which it's kind of odd when you think about it. Republicans like to argue that the problems that they've had with stimulus has been the size, but when they convey their points, they don't describe it in terms of size, right? They were describing it in terms of size, they would say smaller. But when they say targeted, guys, again, psychology here. But anywho, before I continue on that tangent, where we are right now with stimulus is that Republicans today, November 13th, at this point, they are still demanding a smaller package. And actually, they're demanding something smaller than they were a few weeks ago. Why? Because things appear to be getting better. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later too, because I'm highly annoyed. And I really want you to understand, again, kind of the optics, specifically the optics that are being played with data. I mentioned in one of the earlier episodes when we brought the podcast back, I mentioned that, look, numbers don't change, but the interpretation of the numbers can be changed. You can use data to support anything you want it to say, right? Like, it's just a matter of fidagling and fadoodling, and getting things in a certain position, and you can make it be interpreted however you want it to be interpreted. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. On the flip side, considering where Democrats are, again, so we mentioned that Republicans are still looking to get something and demanding something small. Democrats, they are still demanding something large, right? Quite frankly, again, when you look at Republicans, they are actually asking for something smaller than what they were originally asking for. And then when you look at Democrats, they're still seeking something large, but they haven't moved to ask for something larger. And neither side want to budge, right? But if you ask me, both of them should be willing to budge, and they should be willing to budge towards something larger. Why? Because the problem is getting worse, right? Despite what they want these unemployment numbers to tell you, these unemployment numbers are not getting better. And we're going to talk about why they are not getting better. Because when you understand how they're being calculated, You will understand again that what you were being sold is a farce. What you were being sold is a lie. And we need to talk about that. And quite frankly, we need to demand that they actually restructure how they report these numbers, because it's absolutely crazy when you think about it. But so this is where we are. These people are coming back to work, but long story short, they're really not coming back to work, because historically and most certainly in this moment, they are not going to come back to work. Like, they're just there for show. They're there to collect this check and go home.